Ooby-doo, it's everyone's favorite boomer and vintage lens enthusiast. Today we're going to look at the SMC PENTAX-M zoom f4, constant f4, 75 to 150 millimeters. I got this lens cheap for like $100 in excellent plus condition. It has a built-in lens hood. I don't know how effective it is, but it does have a built-in lens hood. It's relatively compact. It's relatively lightweight. It focuses down to 4 feet or 1.2 meters. It has half f-stops. Look at that, which is pretty cool. It balances well on the KR. This is the KR. Balances well on the KR, surprisingly. It's not too heavy. It's a very doable lens. It's well damped, where this thing doesn't just go off on its own. It leaves wherever you put it, it leaves. And the focusing is buttery smooth without being sloppy. I was able to hit like a 90% focus rate using the focus indicator in the camera on the bright lights and heavy overcast condition. Yeah, I missed a couple times, but generally this lens focuses really well. Since this the focusing has issues that I mentioned before, but that's neither here nor there. Now the KR has the typical Pentax built-in shake reduction, but for this lens I had to shut it off because there's no happy medium. They only give you certain increment steps that you could dial in. You could dial in 105 and I think 100 and 120. So that's really not in the middle, you know what I'm saying? And it's a 75 to 150. That's a big range to, set it at one or the other. So I shut it off. And that's why I use a high ISO like 800 or 1600. This camera does an excellent job at 800, and it does an adequate job at 1600. 1600, the noise reduction, which you could adjust, actually gets rid of some fine detail, but I mean, that's a compromise you're making. So I went to the park one day in the beginning of February the 3rd, and it was cold. I think it was like 28 degrees or 30 is below freezing. There's just snow. There's some snow around. There's ice on the lake. I mean, because it was brutal cold before that. And so I shot a bunch of pictures there. And I had trouble with the viewfinder in a bright sun seeing what was happening because the LED stuff isn't that bright and there's no way to adjust it. So I went back like 8 days later and it was warm. It was like, instead of being 28, it was 38. And it was a heavy overcast. So on the bright day I used 800 and on the heavy overcast day I used 1600. And I was still able to shoot at f8 and f11. And I was still able to stop down the f8 by using some f5.6, some 11s like that. So this is a fine lens. This is a really fine lens for $100. If you get one, I highly recommend it. Of course, I'm going to reshoot this on the Nikon Z6, but at some later date, and we'll see how that works out. So this camera is only 12 megapixels, I believe, and it still does a good job. It has a lot of features, a lot of adjustments. It has nice colors. I like it. Like I said, 800 is excellent. No problem. Shoot all day at 800. And 1600 is extremely doable. I mean, for fine detail, it's a compromise. But I'm sure if you want more noise, you can get more detail. There's a wide range of adjustments for the noise reduction. So it was well balanced. It wasn't too big. It didn't feel extremely heavy around my neck. Of course, I was wearing a coat with a hood. I had it on the outside of the hood, so it wasn't like trying to decapitate me. But let's jump right into some pictures, and then you decide. So first, we're going to see some bright sunlight, colder weather, and then we're going to see heavy overcast and some warmer weather at the park. So let's jump right into it. These are some items in my front yard, some rocks I collected. This is called Green Pond Conglomerate, and the area where I live is somewhat famous for it. This is some lawn ornament. This is about 20 feet away. And here's just some plants in my front yard. And of course, I go to the park. And I go to the park. Why do I go to the park? The park is only 10 minutes away. It's a big park. It's like 1,000 acres. Uh, in the state I live in, that's a big park. But in other states, that's a piddling park. But it's nice rolling hills. It has a big lake. It has a lot of trails. And you could go there. Since I live so close, I could go there anytime I want. And, the weather and the lighting is always different. My favorite is early in the morning or late in the afternoon because that's when you get like the contrasty shadows and all that stuff. So this time when I went, it was like 28 degrees and it was like 3:30, 4 o'clock or something like that. And I ran this through the gamut. Now, of course, I use ISO 800 because I want to use the fast shutter speed. I shut the shake reduction off on the K-R, and I was using, as you can see, a 1/64th of a second, 1,000th of a second, stuff like that to reduce unintentional camera motion. And then I was still able to use f8, f11, f5.6, depending on the lighting I was in. And this thing did a really good job. For $100, it's a great lens. A great lens, I highly recommend it. It had really a nice color rendition. Oh, that's part of the camera too. But they seem sharp. It was easy to focus on the K-R. Pentax has this problem with their focusing. If you use too fast a lens, too short a lens, it just has trouble getting focus confirmation. So there's a red dot in the middle, a red square with a red dot, and then there's a green icon in the information bar along the bottom. And I was able to hit like 90% with this lens, which I thought was amazing. Of course, on the KR, it stops down. So what you do is you do wide open focusing, and you set the shutter to whatever you set the aperture to whatever you want. Then you press the button. It stops down and it takes a picture, which is, that's the way it's supposed to be. If I stick this on some other lens, other camera, and with a dumb adapter, then I have to do stop down metering, and I have to leave it stop down. It gets a little harder to focus, but it worked out really, really good. Now, this section of the park I walk in, I take a 40-minute walk, and there's the creek, there's the swamp, there's the reeds, there's the ruins from ancient astronauts, and I do this routine. And then, all right, you can compare all these lenses to similar subjects and see how they perform, and they perform admirably, very admirably. This lens is an excellent lens. It was a little flary, and some of the pictures, I increased the shadows, bring out shadow detail, like especially the high contrast ones. And you could see the flare and some sunspots. See, in this particular picture, the background was almost completely black. So I just boosted the shadows to bring out some detail. But other than that, I didn't do much processing. No sharpening at all, except where I actually stated I did some sharpening. And we're going to see a perfect example coming up next, where I shot from the hip. These people were walking down a trail. I didn't want to point my camera using my face because anyone else could see me taking a picture. So what I did is I just pointed in their general direction, and then, the focus wasn't precise, and then I used on sharp masking in the picture of those two people. Now, I also think the camera did an excellent job on these mulberries. I've been deep into taking pictures of mulberries with different lenses, and I think I got the best results with this lens between 75 and 150 millimeters. And here's the ancient astronaut walls. It's human beings didn't do that. Ancient astronauts did it. So it was just a really nice day. It was cold. It was 28 degrees. It was really sunny. And the camera and lens combination performed very admirably. I was very pleased with it, without a doubt. This is a nice lens. Here's some other lady. This is across the lake. She must have been a couple hundred feet away when I took that picture. I just thought, all right, the K-R is only 12 megapixels, but I got to drop this on a higher megapixel camera and see what it really does. I just got to check that out. And it's just the shadows on the rocks and the trees. There's a lot of detail, and it did a really good job. And it was really clean. There wasn't too much chromatic aberration, or it was very flat field of view. Also, the sharpness was even from wide open to stop down. I didn't go try f16. This lens goes down to f32, but I only went down to f11. I really like this lens. Excellent lens. Highly recommend it. Here's another picture where I took surreptitiously, just putting the camera is hanging on my chest and it's pointing in a general direction. And the focus wasn't precise, and I had unsharp masked that one. Now that was on February 3rd, and now we're on February the 8th. And it was cloudy, and it was 38 degrees. And now you can see how this lens performs differently. Even though I went to the first couple of pictures I took at 800, but I went to 1600 because I wanted to maintain a fast shutter speed to avoid unintentional camera blur. I mean, if you want to see how sharp a lens is, you don't want to have motion blur, and that would the mask or make the lens look worse than it is. Now, of course, when you're using 1600, and you use a noise reduction, then that puts its own issues in. Noise reduction gets rid of noise, but also gets rid of fine detail. So that's a problem. But the K-R, it had a bunch of parameters you could adjust. I think it even had a temperature setting. I guess the colder it is, the less noise a chip has. And here are back to the mulberries, and I think it did an excellent job on the mulberries. It only focuses down to 4 feet, so I had to be about 4 feet away, and it did a really excellent job. I was really pleased with this lens. So I was there under harsh lighting, which is bright sun and shadows, and then I went back, and then it was more even. The lighting was very even, and the contrast, there wasn't too much between light and dark, when it's overcast like that. So this lens is a really good lens. They're cheap, $100. You can get them in excellent condition for $100. I mean, this thing looked brand new. It had some slight scuff marks on it. But other than that, I couldn't tell what else was wrong with it. So this is the Pentax, the SMC PENTAX-M, 75 to 150 millimeter f4, which is a constant aperture, and it came in a K mount. So, look for it, get one. It was relatively small, it was compact, it balanced well on a DSLR. I mean, if you go to 80-200 f4, they're somewhat bigger, they're somewhat more heavier, and are you really getting more reach or anything? I don't know. But, if you just want to have a moderate zoom, tele-zoom, the 75 to 150 can't be beat. Really excellent. I highly recommend this lens. Now, you can see some of these pictures look a little softer in the detail because I was shooting at 1600. Now, I've noticed that the brighter the light, this looks better. So, it was heavy overcast, and I don't know how to explain it, but the dimmer it is, the more noise it makes. So if I was to shoot it in bright light at 1600, using even faster shutter speed, and stop down even more, that sort of masks the noise. I can't explain it, but it's just something I've seen. Like if you use 1600 and the longer exposure you get, just the more noise you get. I don't know if the cameras are designed that way, the chips, or what. I found this lens to be really good. Here's a look at these excellent mulberry pictures. Of all the lenses I've been using, taking pictures of mulberries, and it was a bumper crop of mulberries too, I think this lens gave me the best results. Here's a bridge. You've seen other lenses and cameras using this bridge, and I think it came out pretty good. Excellent. I mean, it's a really cool park to go to and hang out. especially since it's 10 minutes away. A lot of people, it's an hour drive, and they come up an hour. Just think, you go to the park for an hour, you walk around for an hour back, you spend 3 hours. Where it's a 10-minute ride for me, I could spend 40 minutes, 10 minutes back. So if I could go like at least once a week, I get a much better experience, and I could explore the park much better. Man, the ancient astronauts, I can't believe they built these walls like that, you know? Of course, these ruins, they say, are from, they have an iron furnace there in 1846 or something. And I just think that was like their fusion reactor of the day, or their moonshot. And, that was like the American start of industrialism during the Civil War or something. I don't know. And the town, the state took it over. There's 3 of these furnaces, and one they let in a watershed. It fell apart. This one, they put iron bands around it, and I don't know how long it'll last. And there's supposed to be another one in the other county, deep in the woods, but I gotta find that one, see where it is. It says it's even bigger than this one. So, but I still say it's the ancient astronauts did it. I mean, people have smartphones. Look how stupid they are. So, but at the bottom dollar is, I think you should get one of these lenses. Absolutely.